I am Amber, 30 years old, and living in Denver when my cousin called about my brother Blake's engagement party. My stomach dropped like a stone when I realized I had not been invited despite being close with Blake our entire lives. When I called my dad to ask about it, his words stung. "It is just a reunion, Amber. Do not make this a big deal." But it was a big deal to me. How could my own family exclude me from something so important? If you have ever felt the sting of family rejection, drop a comment below about where you are watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe to join our community of shared experiences. Growing up, Blake and I were inseparable. Just 2 years apart, we were each other's built-in best friends, confidants, and partners in crime. Our childhood home in suburban Chicago was filled with memories of us building blanket forts in the living room, creating elaborate backyard adventures, and defending each other fiercely at school. Blake was the one who stood up to the neighborhood bullies when they made fun of my braces in 6th grade. I was the one who covered for him when he snuck out to his first high school party. Our bond was special, forged through shared experiences and the understanding that no matter what happened, we had each other's backs. We had secret codes and inside jokes that no one else understood. Our parents would often find us whispering and giggling late into the night, flashlights under the covers, as we shared our dreams and fears. Everything changed when our parents announced their divorce during my sophomore year of high school. Blake was 14, just starting high school, and I was 16. The news shattered our sense of stability, and suddenly our close-knit family was splitting at the seams. The worst part was choosing where to live. My father had accepted a job in Milwaukee, while my mother planned to stay in Chicago. The decision was agonizing for both of us. After weeks of tears and late-night talks, Blake chose to live with Dad, saying he needed a fresh start. I opted to stay with Mom, unable to imagine leaving my friends and school. It was the first significant divergence in our otherwise parallel lives. The geographic distance between Milwaukee and Chicago was only 90 miles, but it felt like an ocean. We promised to call every day and visit on weekends. For the first few months, we kept that promise, talking for hours and counting down the days until our next visit. But gradually, as we both adjusted to our new normal, the calls became less frequent, the visits more sporadic. Despite this, we remained close through college. I attended Northwestern while Blake went to University of Wisconsin-Madison. We made time for each other during breaks, planning road trips and keeping our traditions alive. When Blake moved to Denver after graduation for a job in architectural design, I followed a year later, landing a position at a marketing firm. It felt like we were rebuilding our connection, creating new memories in a city that was becoming home to both of us. 3 years ago, Blake met Natalie at a charity gala. She was striking and sophisticated, working as an event planner for high-end clients. Blake was immediately smitten. In the beginning, I was happy for him. He deserved someone special, and the way his eyes lit up when he talked about her was heartwarming. But something changed after they became serious. Our weekly dinner tradition dwindled to monthly, then bi-monthly. Blake began checking his phone constantly when we were together, as if waiting for permission to be there. When I invited them both for dinner at my apartment, Natalie would dominate the conversation, rarely asking me questions or showing interest in my life. At family gatherings, I tried to connect with Natalie, hoping to build a friendship with the woman my brother loved. I asked about her work, her family, her interests, but her responses were always polite, yet distant, as if she was tolerating my presence rather than embracing it. She would pull Blake away mid-conversation, claiming they needed to greet someone else, or that she suddenly remembered an important call they had to make. Blake started canceling our plans more frequently. Natalie surprised me with concert tickets, or Natalie thinks I should network at this industry event instead. His excuses always centered around her preferences and plans. I tried not to take it personally, reminding myself that relationships require adjustment periods. Last Christmas, our family gathered at Dad's house in Milwaukee. I was excited to spend quality time with Blake, having not seen him for almost 3 months. But throughout the entire weekend, he seemed to be avoiding one-on-one conversations with me. Whenever I approached him, Natalie would materialize at his side, steering him toward other relatives or friends of our father. On the last night, I finally cornered Blake in the kitchen, while Natalie was engaged with our aunt. "Is everything okay between us?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light despite the knot in my stomach. "Of course," he said, but his eyes darted toward the living room where Natalie sat. "Why would you ask that?" "We barely talk anymore, Blake. I miss you." His expression softened momentarily. "I miss you too, Amber. It has just been busy with work, and balancing everything." Before he could say more, Natalie appeared in the doorway. "There you are," she said to Blake, not acknowledging me. "Your father is looking for you." Blake gave me an apologetic smile and followed her out. That was the last real moment we had together. In the months that followed, I made numerous attempts to reach out. I sent texts with inside jokes, emails with articles I knew would interest him, invitations to events we would have enjoyed together in the past. His responses grew increasingly brief and impersonal. When I suggested meeting for coffee, he would agree, but cancel at the last minute. I began to wonder if I had done something wrong, replaying our interactions for clues. Had I offended Natalie somehow? Was Blake going through something he did not want to share with me? The closeness we had once taken for granted was slipping away, and I felt powerless to stop it. It was a normal Tuesday at my marketing firm in downtown Denver. I had just finished presenting campaign ideas to a new client when I noticed a missed call from my cousin Melanie. We were not particularly close, so I was curious why she would call during work hours. I returned her call during my lunch break. "Amber, I'm so glad you called back," Melanie said, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "I wanted to ask what you are wearing to Blake's engagement party this weekend. I am torn between the blue dress and the new jumpsuit I bought." My heart stopped. "Blake's what?" There was a moment of silence before Melanie spoke again, her voice uncertain. "The engagement party. At Uncle Robert's lake house this Saturday. Please tell me you knew about this." I gripped my phone tighter, trying to keep my voice steady. "No, actually. This is the first I am hearing about it." "Oh my God, Amber. I am so sorry," Melanie said, genuinely distressed. "I thought for sure you would be the first to know. They sent out invitations 3 weeks ago. Blake and Natalie are having a big celebration at the lake house. Most of the family will be there, plus Natalie's relatives." As Melanie continued with details about the party, I felt like I was underwater, her voice becoming distant and muffled. My brother was celebrating his engagement, and I had not even been told about it, let alone invited. "Who all is going?" I managed to ask. "Well, Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia are hosting. Your dad will be there. Your mom is flying in from Chicago, all the cousins. I really thought you knew, Amber. I am so sorry to be the one telling you this." I ended the call shortly after promising Melanie I would call her back, though we both knew I would not. Back at my desk, I stared blankly at my computer screen, unable to focus on anything. My brother, my best friend growing up, had not bothered to invite me to one of the most significant celebrations of his life. Without thinking twice, I called my father. He answered on the 4th ring, sounding distracted. "Dad, did you know Blake is having an engagement party this weekend?" "Yes, at the lake house. It should be nice." "And did you know I was not invited?" There was a pause. "I assumed you were busy or could not make it." "No, Dad. I was never invited. I just found out from Melanie." He sighed, and I could picture him removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose, a gesture he always made when annoyed. "It is just a reunion, Amber. Do not make this a big deal. I am sure it was an oversight." An oversight. My own brother forgot to invite me to his engagement party. You know how these things go. Natalie's family is handling most of the planning. Names get lost, invitations get lost in the mail. Why not just call Blake and sort it out? His dismissive tone hurt almost as much as the exclusion itself. I thanked him curtly and ended the call, immediately dialing Blake's number. It went straight to voicemail. I left a message trying to sound casual, asking him to call me back when he had a chance. Next, I sent a text. "Hey, just heard about your engagement party this weekend from Melanie. Congrats on the official announcement. Did my invitation get lost?" 20 agonizing minutes later, my phone pinged with his response. "Sorry about that. Natalie's parents organized everything and kept the guest list small, mainly family and close friends." I stared at the message, the words family and close friends burning into my retinas. If I did not qualify as either of those, then what was I? I typed back, "I am your sister." I thought that made me both family and a close friend. His reply came faster this time. "You know what I mean. It is mostly Natalie's extended family and her friends. Her parents covered everything and had limited space. We will celebrate together another time, just the two of us." The hollow promise felt like a slap in the face. I put my phone down, unable to respond without saying something I might regret. My afternoon meetings passed in a blur, my mind replaying the conversation with my father and the text exchange with Blake. That evening, I called my best friend Rachel, needing someone to talk me off the emotional ledge I was teetering on. They did what Rachel exclaimed after I explained the situation. "That is beyond messed up, Amber. You need to confront them." "And say what? Why do you not want me at your party?" I would sound pathetic. "No, you would sound like someone standing up for herself. This is not just some random gathering. It is his engagement party, and you are his sister. There is no world where it is okay to exclude you." I paced around my apartment, phone pressed to my ear. "I think Natalie is behind this. She has never liked me." All the more reason to call them out. Blake needs to know what she is doing. But what if it was his decision too? What if he really does not want me there? Rachel sighed. "Then you deserve to know that. Either way, hiding how you feel is not going to solve anything." I considered her advice seriously. Part of me wanted to drive to Blake's apartment that very moment and demand answers. But another part, the part that had watched our relationship deteriorate over the past 3 years, was afraid of what those answers might be. "I cannot do it, Rach. I cannot cause drama right before his engagement party. Whatever is happening between us this weekend is supposed to be a happy time for him. So what are you going to do instead? Sit at home feeling sorry for yourself?" Her question sparked something in me. I am going to go skiing." "Skiing?" "Yes. I have been wanting to go to Breckenridge all season. This is the perfect weekend for it. I will be having too much fun to worry about some stupid party I was not invited to." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "That is actually not a bad idea. Living well is the best revenge and all that. Want company?" "Actually, yeah. That would be great." By the time we hung up, my plan was taking shape. I would not confront Blake or make a scene. Instead, I would show them all that their exclusion did not hurt me, that I had my own full life without them. It was a lie, of course. I was hurt deeply, but they did not need to know that. The decision to go skiing felt impulsive but right. I needed to escape Denver, and the knowledge that somewhere in the city my family was preparing for a celebration I was not welcome to attend. I called my friend Tara, who I knew loved winter sports as much as I did, and was relieved when she immediately agreed to join me. "Last-minute Breckenridge trip, count me in," she said without hesitation. "I can leave work early on Friday." I spent Wednesday evening packing, throwing thermal layers and ski gear into my duffel bag while fighting back tears. The practical tasks helped distract me from the constant buzzing of my phone, as family members began reaching out about the party, unaware that I had not been invited. Aunt Susan texted, "Looking forward to seeing you at the lake house this weekend. It has been too long." Cousin Daniel sent Blake's engagement party is going to be epic. See you there. I left them all unanswered, unable to explain the situation without sounding bitter or hurt. Friday afternoon arrived, and Tara met me at my apartment, her SUV already loaded with her gear. The 3-hour drive to Breckenridge would normally have been filled with excited chatter about the slopes and snow conditions, but I found myself quieter than usual, staring out the window at the mountains, looming larger as we approached. "Want to talk about it?" Tara asked after nearly an hour of sparse conversation. I sighed, watching my breath fog the passenger window. "Not really. I just want to forget about it for the weekend." "Fair enough. But for what it is worth, they are the ones missing out. Not you." Her simple support brought a lump to my throat. "Thanks, Tara." She turned up the radio, and we sang along to 90s hits for the rest of the drive, the familiar lyrics, a comforting distraction. We arrived at our rental cabin just as the sun was setting, casting pink and orange hues across the snow-covered peaks. The cabin was small but charming, with a stone fireplace and large windows overlooking the forest. Under different circumstances, I would have been ecstatic about the cozy weekend ahead. After unpacking and grabbing a quick dinner at a nearby tavern, we returned to the cabin to plan our skiing route for the next day. Tara spread out a trail map on the coffee table, while I built a fire, the physical tasks helping to keep my mind occupied. "I am thinking we start with the Colorado Superchair tomorrow, hit some blues to warm up, then maybe challenge ourselves on the Imperial Express if conditions are good," Tara suggested, tracing routes with her finger. "Sounds perfect," I agreed, trying to summon enthusiasm. The forecast said fresh powder overnight. We went to bed early, exhausted from the drive, and anticipating an early start on the slopes. I lay awake long after Tara's breathing had deepened into sleep, my mind replaying the text exchange with Blake. What would he be doing now? Preparing for his celebration? Did he even notice my absence in his life anymore? Saturday morning dawned bright and cold, the promised snowfall having blanketed the resort with several inches of fresh powder. We were among the first on the gondola, the crisp mountain air and spectacular views momentarily lifting my spirits. As we glided down the first run, the familiar rhythm of skiing began to work its magic. For brief stretches, I could focus entirely on the physical sensation, the speed and control, forgetting everything else. By midday, we had covered most of the resort's western face and stopped for lunch at a mountaintop restaurant. The sun was bright, reflecting blindingly off the snow, and the sky was a perfect Colorado blue. "You seem better," Tara observed as we sat on the outdoor deck watching skiers and snowboarders carve their way down the mountain below us. "I am," I admitted. "Being out here helps put things in perspective." "Good. Oh, we should take some pictures. The lighting is perfect right now." I hesitated, knowing that any social media posts would be seen by family members who thought I was sitting at home nursing my wounded pride. Tara seemed to read my mind. "Come on, this view is too good not to share. Besides, it might feel good to show the world you are out living your life." She was right. After lunch, we asked a fellow skier to take a few photos of us together, posing with our skis and snowboards against the backdrop of the majestic Rockies. But it was later, as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, that we captured the perfect shot. We had taken the Imperial Express to the highest point of the resort, where the panoramic views were breathtaking. The late afternoon light bathed everything in a golden glow, and the mountains stretched endlessly before us. Tara insisted on taking a photo of me alone standing at the edge of the ridge. "One more," she called, and I turned toward her, my face flushed from the cold and exertion, a genuine smile finally breaking through. The mountains spread out behind me, my ski goggles pushed up onto my helmet snow, clinging to my jacket. In that moment, I felt free. Back at the cabin that evening, Tara and I scrolled through the day's photos, selecting the best ones to share. The summit photo stood out immediately. "That one," Tara said, pointing to the shot where I was smiling. "You look happy." I nodded already, thinking about the caption. I wanted something casual, something that showed I was having an amazing weekend, without explicitly mentioning why I was not at the lake house. After several drafts, I settled on, "Nothing beats a bluebird day at Breck, with fresh powder and good friends." My finger hovered over the post button, my heart racing with a mix of defiance and anxiety. Was this petty? Maybe. but it also felt like reclaiming some small piece of my dignity. I pressed post and set my phone aside, determined not to obsessively check for reactions. Tara and I made dinner in the cabin's small kitchen, opened a bottle of wine, and settled in front of the fireplace to watch a movie. For a few hours, I almost forgot about the party happening 200 miles away. It was not until we finished the movie that I checked my phone again. The post had garnered dozens of likes and supportive comments from friends. Living your best life. Those views are incredible. So jealous right now. But mixed among them were the first ripples of family reaction. A text from my mother: skiing instead of your brother's party. Call me. A comment from my aunt asking if I was okay. And most telling, a private message from my cousin Melanie. Everyone is asking where you are. Blake looks upset. What is going on? I turned off notifications and put my phone on the bedside table, suddenly exhausted. Tomorrow would bring the full storm, I was sure of it. But for tonight, high in the mountains, I had created a small sanctuary from the family drama unfolding without me. Sunday morning, I woke to the soft light filtering through the cabin's curtains and the quiet sound of Tara making coffee in the kitchen. For a blissful moment, I forgot about everything except the promise of another day on the slopes. Then I reached for my phone. The screen was flooded with notifications. 14 missed calls, 27 text messages, numerous social media alerts. My peaceful bubble had officially burst. I scrolled through the messages, my stomach knotting tighter with each one. My mother had progressed from confused to worried. Amber, why are you skiing? Did you forget about the party? Please call me back. I am concerned. Your brother is asking about you. What should I tell him? My father's voicemails started calmly but escalated to anger. Amber, call me when you get this. We need to talk. This childish behavior is exactly why you create problems in the family. You are deliberately causing drama on your brother's special day. Grow up. The most hurtful message came from Blake himself. Real mature, Amber. You could not just let me have one day without making it about you. Natalie was right about you, all along. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone clutched in my trembling hand, as Tara entered with 2 mugs of coffee. That bad? She asked, seeing my expression. Worse, I managed, showing her Blake's text. She sat beside me, scanning through the messages. Holy shit. They are acting like you committed a crime by going skiing instead of crashing a party you were explicitly not invited to. Look at this, I said, opening the family group chat. Screenshots from the party showed smiling relatives gathered around Blake and Natalie, champagne flutes raised in celebration. My aunt had posted, almost perfect day, missing only one special person, which had prompted a flurry of questions about my absence. Natalie's mother had apparently told several people that I had declined the invitation because I could not be bothered to attend. My Uncle Robert had defended this version of events, adding that I had always been difficult. This sparked a heated exchange between him and Aunt Susan, who insisted something was not adding up. Your dad actually wrote, Amber chose not to be here. Let us respect her decision and focus on Blake and Natalie. Tara read aloud, her voice incredulous. He is straight up lying. The betrayal cut deep. Not only had they excluded me, but now they were rewriting the narrative to make me the villain. I scrolled further to find more relatives taking sides in the unfolding drama. Cousin Eric, classic Amber always has to be the center of attention. Aunt Susan. Something is not right. Amber would never miss this without a good reason. Uncle Robert. She has always been jealous of her brother's success. Cousin Melanie. Can everyone stop speculating? None of us know the whole story. The family I thought I knew was fracturing before my eyes, their true feelings about me spilling out in digital form. I had become a convenient scapegoat, the disruptive element in an otherwise perfect family portrait. I put the phone down and pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes, trying to stem the tears that threatened to overflow. Tara wrapped an arm around my shoulders. This is so messed up, she said softly. They are gaslighting you. I cannot believe Blake would let them do this. I whispered. He knows the truth. Natalie has him wrapped around her finger. Look at what he wrote you. Natalie was right about you all along. What does that even mean? I shook my head, unable to answer. What had Natalie been saying about me behind my back? What image of me had she created in Blake's mind that made him so willing to cut me out? I need to respond, I said, reaching for my phone again. Tara gently took it from my hands. Not right now. You are upset, and anything you say will just feed into their narrative that you are being dramatic. Let us go skiing, clear your head, and deal with this when we get back to Denver. I knew she was right, but the thought of strapping on my boots and pretending to enjoy the day felt impossible. Still, the alternative was sitting in the cabin, obsessing over every message, which would only make things worse. We hit the slopes later than planned, the bright sunshine and perfect snow conditions, a stark contrast to my dark mood. I went through the motions, mechanically unable to find yesterday's joy in the activity. Around noon, Tara suggested we call it a day. Your heart is not in it, she said, and that is okay. Why do not we head back to Denver early? You will feel better dealing with this from home. The 3-hour drive back to the city was quiet, my mind racing with all the things I wanted to say to my family, especially Blake. How could he let this happen? How could he believe whatever lies Natalie had told him about me? The brother I knew would have defended me, included me, chosen me. But maybe that brother was gone, replaced by someone I no longer recognized. We reached my apartment by late afternoon. Tara helped me unload my gear and offered to stay, but I needed to be alone. After she left, I sat on my couch staring at the phone I had been avoiding for hours. It was time to face the fallout. I started with a text to my mother. I was not invited to the party. Blake and Dad knew this. Please call me when you can talk privately. Next, I crafted a simple post on social media. To clarify for concerned family members, I was not at Blake's engagement party because I was not invited. I chose to spend the weekend enjoying Colorado's mountains rather than sitting at home feeling excluded. I wish Blake and Natalie all the happiness in the world. The responses were immediate. My phone began ringing almost instantly, my mother's name flashing on the screen. I took a deep breath and answered. What do you mean you were not invited? She demanded without preamble. Your father told me you knew about it but said you could not make it. He lied, Mom. I found out about the party from Melanie on Tuesday. When I called Dad, he dismissed it as just a reunion and told me not to make a big deal about it. That cannot be right, she said, but I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Why would Blake not invite his own sister? Ask Natalie, I said bitterly. Apparently she has been telling everyone what a terrible person I am. The conversation with my mother lasted nearly an hour, as I filled her in on the gradual distancing, the canceled plans, the cold treatment from Natalie. She was shocked and apologetic, promising to speak with Blake directly. I had no idea things were this bad, she said. I noticed you two were not as close lately, but I assumed it was just adult lives getting busy. After we hung up, I felt marginally better. At least someone in my family believed me. But the hardest conversation was still to come. Monday morning arrived with a heaviness I could not shake. Despite taking a personal day from work, I found myself up early rehearsing conversations in my head and checking my phone obsessively. Blake had not responded to my social media clarification, nor had my father. The family group chat had gone suspiciously quiet. By afternoon, I could no longer stand the silence. This had to be addressed face to face. I texted Blake. We need to talk. I am coming over after work. His response came quickly. Fine. I will be home around 6. The drive to Blake's apartment across town felt both too long and too short. My mind raced with all the things I wanted to say, the hurt and confusion I needed to express. Would he listen? Would he care? The Blake I grew up with would, but I was no longer sure that version of my brother still existed. I parked outside his building at 6:15, giving him time to get home and settle in. The walk to his third-floor apartment was familiar, I had been there countless times for dinners and game nights before Natalie entered the picture. Now it felt like approaching a stranger's door. I knocked, my heart pounding. Blake opened the door, his expression guarded. Behind him, I caught sight of Natalie sitting on the couch, her posture rigid and unwelcoming. I had not expected her to be there, and her presence immediately altered the conversation I had planned. "Come in," Blake said flatly, stepping aside. I entered the living room, the familiar space, now feeling hostile. Family photos that once included me had been replaced with pictures of Blake and Natalie, their smiling faces, documenting trips and events I knew nothing about. "Hi, Natalie," I said, attempting civility, despite the tension crackling in the air. "I did not realize you would be here." "This concerns me too," she replied coolly. "After your little social media stunt yesterday, I think I deserve to be part of the conversation." Blake gestured for me to sit in the armchair across from the couch where they sat together, a united front. I remained standing. "My social media stunt," I repeated, struggling to keep my voice level. "You mean correcting the lie that I declined an invitation I never received?" Blake's jaw tightened. "You could have called me directly instead of broadcasting it to everyone we know." "I did call you. I texted you. You dismissed me, and then let everyone believe I was ditching your party out of spite." "You were clearly trying to get attention with that skiing post," Natalie interjected. "You knew exactly what you were doing." I turned to her, no longer able to maintain the pretense of politeness. What I was doing was enjoying my weekend, instead of sitting at home crying over being excluded from my only brother's engagement celebration. "What were you doing, Natalie? Besides turning my family against me?" Blake stood up, his face flushed with anger. "Do not talk to her like that. This is exactly why we did not invite you. You always have to create drama." His words hit me like a physical blow. "So you admit it? It was a deliberate choice to exclude me." He hesitated, glancing at Natalie before responding. "Yes, it was a deliberate choice. Natalie's parents were organizing everything, and they wanted to keep it intimate." "And your sister does not qualify as intimate." Blake ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar, it made my heart ache for the brother I used to know. "Natalie felt you would make the day about yourself. She wanted it to be perfect. And I would ruin it somehow." "Based on what?" Natalie stood now too, her arms crossed defensively. "Based on every interaction we have ever had. You constantly try to monopolize Blake's attention. You make snide comments about our relationship. You question his choices when they do not align with what you want." I stared at her in disbelief, then looked to Blake. "Is that really how you see me?" His expression wavered, uncertainty flashing across his features. "You have been different since I met Natalie. Critical. Distant." "I have been distant." I could not contain the incredulous laugh that escaped me. "Blake, you canceled every plan we made for months. You stopped returning my calls. You let this woman convince you that your sister, who has loved you and supported you our entire lives, is some kind of threat." "You see," Natalie said to Blake, "she cannot take any responsibility. It is always someone else's fault." "What exactly am I supposed to take responsibility for?" "Loving my brother. Wanting to be included in his life. Feeling hurt when I am excluded from major family events." Blake's voice hardened again. "You have never given Natalie a chance. From day one you judged her, made her feel unwelcome." "That is not true," I protested, tears stinging my eyes. "I tried so hard with her. I invited you both to dinner. I asked about her interests, her family. She was the one who was cold to me." "This is pointless," Natalie said, shaking her head. "She will never see it." "See what I demanded? What terrible thing have I done that justifies cutting me out of your lives?" Blake sighed heavily. "Maybe it is better if you stay away for a while, Amber. Give us all some space. This engagement period should be happy, not filled with conflict." I stood frozen, unable to process what I was hearing. My own brother was asking me to disappear from his life, to make things easier for him, and the woman who had systematically driven a wedge between us. "So, that is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 3 decades of being siblings, and you are choosing her version of me over everything you know to be true. I am choosing peace, he said, not meeting my eyes. I am choosing my future. A future without your sister in it, I clarified, tears now flowing freely. I hope it is worth it, Blake. I walked out without another word, the door closing behind me, with a finality that echoed in my chest. In my car, I sat shaking, unable to drive immediately. I called my mother, needing to hear a sympathetic voice. He said it is better if I stay away, I told her between sobs. He believes all these things about me that are not true. Oh, Amber, my mother sighed. This is worse than I thought. I spoke with your Aunt Susan this morning. She said Natalie has been telling everyone that you are jealous of their relationship, that you have tried to sabotage it from the beginning. That is insane. Why would I do that? I do not know, sweetheart. But she has been very effective at turning people against you. Even your father believes her version of events. As the full reality of the situation sank in, I realized I had not just lost my invitation to a party. I had lost my brother to someone who, for reasons I could not fathom, had decided I was the enemy. The week following my confrontation with Blake and Natalie was one of the lowest points in my life. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office to avoid going home to an empty apartment filled with memories and unanswered questions. I declined calls from relatives, unable to rehash the painful details again and again. Only my mother and Tara knew the full extent of what had happened, and their support was the thin thread keeping me tethered to sanity. Friday evening, just as I was considering whether to order takeout or attempt to cook something from my nearly empty refrigerator, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find my cousin Melanie standing there, a sympathetic smile on her face, and a manila envelope in her hands. "Hey," she said softly. "Can I come in?" I hesitated, unsure if I could handle another family member questioning my side of the story. But Melanie had always been fair-minded, and her messages in the family chat had been the most neutral. "Sure," I said, stepping aside to let her in. "What brings you by?" She settled on my couch, placing the envelope on the coffee table between us. "I thought you might want to see these. And I wanted to check on you. Things got pretty intense in the family chat." "That is an understatement," I said, eyeing the envelope warily. "What is in there?" "Photos from the engagement party. Professional ones and some I took myself." I shook my head. "I do not think I want to see those, Melanie." "Trust me, you do," she insisted, opening the envelope and spreading several photographs across the table. "Look at Blake in these." Reluctantly, I leaned forward to examine the images. They showed the typical engagement party scenes, Blake and Natalie cutting a cake, toasting with champagne, posing with various family members. But as I looked closer, I noticed what Melanie was pointing out. In nearly every photo, Blake's smile seemed forced, his eyes lacking the joy one would expect on such an occasion. "He looks miserable," I said, surprised. "He was," Melanie confirmed. "And it was not just because you were not there, though several people asked about you. It was something more." She pulled out more photos, these less formal, candid shots she had taken on her phone. One showed Blake standing alone by the lake, his expression somber, as he stared out at the water. Another captured a tense moment between him and Natalie, her hand gripping his arm as she spoke intently into his ear. "What happened that day?" I asked. Melanie sighed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "It was weird from the start. When people asked where you were, Natalie kept giving different answers. She told your dad you had declined because you were busy. She told her parents you two had a falling out years ago. She told me you were invited but never responded." "None of that is true," I said, anger flaring again. "I know that now," Melanie assured me. "But at the time, it created this strange atmosphere where everyone was confused and starting to take sides. Your Aunt Susan kept pressing for the truth, which made Natalie really defensive." She showed me more photos, pointing out details I would have missed. "See how Blake is always looking over his shoulder in these? Like he is checking to see if Natalie is watching him. And in this one, He literally flinched when she approached him during his conversation with your mom. As Melanie continued, a disturbing pattern emerged. Natalie had been systematically isolating Blake, not just from me, but from anyone who questioned her narrative. She had told different stories to different relatives, creating confusion and conflict that made Blake retreat further into their relationship. "It is not just you," Melanie said gently. "Blake barely talks to his friends anymore. Remember Jake from college? He was supposed to be at the party, but was suddenly uninvited at the last minute." Natalie claimed he had made inappropriate comments about her, but multiple people told me that is not true. The revelation that Natalie's controlling behavior extended beyond me was both validating and deeply concerning. What had started as personal hurt was evolving into genuine worry for my brother's well-being. "What should I do?" I asked, looking at a particularly telling photo of Blake staring longingly at a family group while Natalie chatted with her friends. "I tried to talk to him, and he shut me out completely." "I do not know," Melanie admitted. "I am worried about him too, but pushing too hard might just drive him further away. Maybe give him some time to see things for himself." We talked for another hour, Melanie sharing more observations from the party and the family gatherings I had missed over the past year. Her visit left me with mixed emotions: vindication that I was not crazy or imagining Natalie's manipulation, but also increased concern for Blake. 3 days later, my phone rang with Blake's number. I stared at it in disbelief before answering. "Blake." "Hey Amber," he said, his voice tentative. "Do you have some time to talk?" "Of course," I replied, trying to keep the eagerness from my voice. "Always." "I owe you an apology." He began, the words coming out in a rush. "A big one. I have not been seeing things clearly." I sat down, unprepared for this sudden shift. "What do you mean?" "After our argument, I started thinking about everything you said. Then Mom called, and Aunt Susan, and even Melanie. They all had questions that made me look at things differently." He paused, taking a deep breath. "Natalie has been telling me things about you for years. That you were jealous of our relationship, that you tried to undermine us, that you spoke badly about her to family." "None of that is true, Blake." "I know that now," he said quietly. "Or at least I am starting to see that her version of events does not match reality. She gets so upset when I question her that I just stopped doing it. It was easier to believe her than to deal with the conflict." The admission sent a wave of relief through me. My brother was still in there, still capable of seeing the truth. "I miss you," I said simply. "I miss you too. So much. I do not like who I have become, Amber. I do not recognize myself sometimes." We arranged to meet for lunch the following day at a quiet restaurant halfway between our apartments. Blake insisted we meet alone, without telling Natalie. "She checks my phone," he confessed, the shame evident in his voice, "so I will delete this call from my history, just in case." That single detail spoke volumes about the state of his relationship. Our lunch reunion was emotional and cathartic. Sitting across from each other in a corner booth, it felt like reconnecting with a part of myself I had lost. Blake looked thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. "I cannot believe I let things get this bad," he said, staring into his untouched coffee. "I kept telling myself it was normal, that relationships change people, that Natalie just needed reassurance." "When did it start?" I asked gently. "Gradually. First it was little comments about how much time I spent with you or my friends. Then it became accusations that I was prioritizing everyone else over her. When I defended you, she would get upset, say I was choosing you over her. Eventually, it was easier to just cancel plans with you than deal with the aftermath." As he spoke, I began to understand the slow, insidious way Natalie had isolated him. Not through dramatic ultimatums, but through persistent emotional pressure that wore down his resistance over time. "The engagement party was the breaking point," he continued. "I wanted you there. I asked repeatedly why you were not on the guest list. Natalie said you had told her you did not want to come, that you thought the engagement was a mistake." I never said that, I assured him. I never even spoke to her about it because I did not know until Melanie called me. I believe you, he said, meeting my eyes for the first time. After seeing your post, I confronted her. The story kept changing. First, she said it was her parents' decision. Then she said the invitation must have gotten lost. Then she admitted she thought you would cause problems. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. I am having serious doubts about the engagement, Amber. About everything. I reached across the table and took his hand. Whatever you decide, I am here for you. No judgment, no pressure. I just want you to be happy, and treated with the respect you deserve. I need time to figure things out, he said, squeezing my hand. But I do not want to lose you again. You are my sister, my best friend. I forgot that for a while, but I remember now. We parted with a long hug, promising to stay in touch regardless of what happened with Natalie. Blake asked me not to tell anyone about our meeting, not even our parents, until he had sorted through his feelings and made some decisions. I agreed, though. It was difficult to keep such a positive development to myself. As I watched him walk to his car, I felt a mixture of hope and caution. The road ahead would not be easy for him, but at least now he was beginning to see the truth. And whatever happened, we had taken the first step toward rebuilding our bond. 3 months passed like a slow exhale each day, bringing small signs of healing and renewal. Blake had broken off his engagement with Natalie, a decision that sent shockwaves through the family, but ultimately proved to be the right choice for him. The process was messy and painful, with Natalie alternating between tearful pleas and vicious accusations, but Blake remained firm in his decision. I was helping him move into his new apartment, a sun-filled one-bedroom in a neighborhood closer to mine. We had spent the morning carrying boxes and assembling furniture, falling easily back into the rhythm of sibling teamwork that had defined our childhood. I think that is the last box, Blake said, collapsing onto his newly assembled couch. Thanks for helping. I could not have done this alone. That is what sisters are for, I replied, joining him on the couch. Besides, I have a vested interest in making sure your new place is nice, since I plan to visit often. He smiled, a genuine expression that had become more frequent in recent weeks. I am counting on it. Maybe we can restart our weekly dinner tradition. Absolutely. My cooking skills have improved since the last time you risked eating my food. We laughed, the sound filling the apartment with warmth. These moments of ordinary sibling banter had once been so common I took them for granted. Now, after nearly losing our connection entirely, each one felt precious. The road to reconciliation had not been straightforward. After our lunch meeting, Blake had spent several weeks in intense reflection, eventually seeking help from a therapist to process the manipulation he had experienced. He moved out of the apartment he shared with Natalie and stayed with our father temporarily while sorting out his next steps. Our father, initially angry and disbelieving, had gradually come to understand the situation as Blake opened up about his relationship. The conversation where Blake finally confronted Dad about his role in excluding me from the engagement party had been difficult, but necessary. He apologized, Blake told me later. Said he should have questioned things more, instead of accepting Natalie's version of events. He feels guilty about how he treated you. My own conversation with our father came a week later over coffee at a neutral location. His apology was awkward but sincere, acknowledging that he had failed in his responsibility to both his children. I wanted to believe everything was fine, he admitted. It was easier than facing the possibility that Blake was in an unhealthy relationship. I am sorry I dismissed your feelings, Amber. You deserved better. The healing extended beyond just Blake and me. Our entire family had been forced to confront some uncomfortable truths about communication assumptions and the ease with which relationships can be manipulated by half-truths and misunderstandings. Aunt Susan organized a family therapy session, which surprised everyone by being productive rather than awkward. We established new ground rules for communication, agreed to verify information before jumping to conclusions, and committed to supporting each other more actively. For me, the experience had been transformative in unexpected ways. The pain of exclusion had forced me to examine my own patterns in relationships and my reluctance to confront problems directly. I had allowed the gradual distancing from Blake to continue for years, making excuses and avoiding difficult conversations until the situation reached a breaking point. "I should have called you out sooner," I told Blake during one of our heart-to-heart talks. "When you first started canceling plans and pulling away, I should have demanded answers instead of just accepting it." "I would not have listened then," he replied honestly. "I was too deep in the fog, but you are right that we both need to be more direct about our feelings. No more tiptoeing around issues." Our weekly dinners became a sacred space for rebuilding trust and sharing our lives. Blake was slowly rediscovering himself, reconnecting with friends he had neglected, and pursuing interests Natalie had discouraged. I supported him without pushing, learning to balance involvement with respect for his independence. My relationship with extended family improved as well. Cousin Melanie and I became closer, bonding over our shared concern for Blake and our determination to be more proactive in maintaining family connections. Uncle Robert, who had been quick to believe the worst about me, made a point of inviting me to his 4th of July barbecue and publicly acknowledging his error in judgment. 6 months after the engagement party debacle, Blake and I planned a small family gathering at my apartment, a deliberate reclaiming of the celebration we had been denied. It was nothing elaborate, just good food, better company, and the chance to create new memories untainted by manipulation and exclusion. As I looked around at the people filling my living room, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The painful experience had ultimately led to greater authenticity in all my relationships. I had learned to value my own worth, to speak up when something felt wrong, and to recognize the signs of unhealthy dynamics before they could take root. Blake caught my eye across the room and raised his glass in a subtle toast, a private acknowledgement of how far we had come. I returned the gesture, my heart full. The exclusion that had once felt like the end of our sibling bond had instead become the catalyst for its renewal, stronger and more resilient than before. We had both learned that family is not just about shared blood or history, but about active choice, about fighting for the connections that matter even when it is difficult. In the darkest moment of feeling unwanted by my own family, I could never have imagined that it would lead to this new beginning, this deeper understanding of what it means to truly see and support each other. The party I was not invited to had, in its own painful way, given me a gift: the recognition that self-respect is non-negotiable, that honesty is essential, even when it is uncomfortable, and that sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and others is to speak our truth, even when it disrupts the false peace of silence. Have you ever experienced exclusion from someone you thought would always include you? Drop a comment below to share your story. Your experience might help someone else feel less alone. Also, if this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complicated family dynamics. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the relationships that challenge us most are the ones that teach us who we truly are and what we really deserve.